if you want to get back in the kitchen and you're intimidated, when you look at a recipe and you see the entire thing is made on the stovetop, that's your recipe. Make that.
Yep.
Just the stovetop's going to be the fastest way that you get from raw ingredients to plating it and eating it. It's sometimes in as little as 15 minutes. And for example, I have a salmon puttanesca recipe on my website. Sounds like fancy words. It is not. You make it in 15 minutes. It will be done. You'll be eating it. Then when you get to the oven, things take a little longer. And then when you get into like the slow cooker thing, and which actually slow cookers and Instant Pot stuff are very easy, but they require the prep in advance, and then you eat later in the day. But that's kind of my rule of thumb. Another thing I say is focus on the recipes that have the cheaper cuts of meat, because then you are saving money and getting in it. So cheaper cuts of meat, meaning ground meat, chicken thighs per pound are much less expensive than chicken breast.
Air fry them too.
Air fryer too. Air fryer is really easy too if you have an air fryer. So I always say that. I also have other tricks, like my vegetable side dishes. You'll often find there will either be some sort of delicious pork product in there, maybe a little chopped up bacon, maybe some pancetta, maybe some salami, you know what I mean? Or maybe like some roasted nuts with it, if you can tolerate nuts. I always say the reason why people say they don't like vegetables is because they grew up eating steamed broccoli with poached or grilled chicken breast with no flavor. That's not vegetables. Yeah, and that's not the way that vegetables are meant to be eaten, by the way. It just became this thing when we were all doing low fat in the 80s that like we couldn't dare put butter on steamed broccoli. And it's like, no.
We had that spray stuff, Anna. Remember the spray butter?
Spray butter. My grandparents would do the parquet.
Yes.
They were, the high blood pressure and making sure you have to have margarine because it's healthier.
Yeah, Mama had country crock, and it's a crock, all right.
That's right.
Yes.
I think my dad and some other still eat country crock, but you could still find that in there.
Oh, it's horrible. So I remember about 7 years ago, Pete Evans in Australia invited me to do a food segment with him. He said, "Come on, mate, I'll cook with you and you'll talk about keto." I'm like, "Okay, cool." So it was for a TV show, ended up on Netflix. And so I'm doing this show with him and I'm seeing him dip everything, literally everything into this liquid stuff. And I was like, "Pete, what are you doing? What is all that?" He's like, "Mate, that's the secret to a good chef. Bone broth." Literally cooked everything in bone broth.
Wow,
and so I
awesome.
started doing that, Anna, and it elevates your food in ways you have no idea. And then you get the gut healing effects of bone broth. Mm-hmm. It flavorifies it. Man, like that was such a missing element. And that meal with the broccoli and chicken, if you just dip that bad boy, just dunk it and baptize it in Jesus' name, amen, you're going to have a wonderful meal.
Well, if you think about it, the concept of a lot of things that we like to eat, like slow cooker stuff, Instant Pot stuff that's cooked in the pan, braising is using a liquid to let it it halfway poaches, it halfway boils in the liquid, and also uses the steam that comes up. So if you think about it, the more liquid you put into something, have you seen where they have those injectors where you can take the bone broth,
yes,
inject it into the meat?
Yes.
Same idea. You're using so much moisture, and you're absolutely correct. You got all the electrolytes from the bone broth, all the gut healing properties. Hold on, I have to sneeze. I'm muting.
Achoo! See, I'm giving you sound effects, Anna.
Okay, I did it.
You did it.
I'm back.
Back in black.
Yeah, that's great. I love it.
Yes. Bone broth was such a game changer for me. And if you're not already cooking with bone broth, you guys, that is going to make you want to cook at home. Like literally, I can cook vegetables and chicken. You could literally cook anything in it. It's wonderful.
By the way, pro tip, save every scrap that you have and put it in a Ziploc bag in the freezer. And then then you say like every Sunday you take whatever's in there, dump it in your Instant Pot or your slow cooker, and just make your bone broth.
Yes,
you don't have to go buy special bone, because that's another thing. If you can get bones, that's great. But why not use the stuff that you have? Repurpose the stuff that you have. If you ever buy a rotisserie chicken,
yes,
you could make several rounds of bone broth with that thing.
Yes, although I will tell you what I do with the carcass after a rotisserie. I throw it to my girls in the backyard. I got 15 backyard chickens. They love chicken. I know it's weird.
Cannibalism
Jimmy.
Yes, yes,
Right.
but it works, and those egg yolks are so yummy. Oh my goodness, so good. I'm not
It's very
kidding you.
meta. The egg yolks from the chickens eating chickens.
Yes, that's unbelievable. Said cannibalism allowed, Lindsay, when it comes to chickens, apparently. So. Well, let's reset the room, you guys. You are in the Keto Clarity Club here on Clubhouse. And so click on that green house at the very top. You can subscribe to my channel. We've only been on for a few days, but we're going to try to do lots and lots of wonderful interviews with people I know. I'm the old guy. Everybody calls me the OG Anna, but it just stands for old guy in the community. And so I know how to interview people, and I've known Anna for a very long time. Definitely go follow Anna. Go get her books, the Eat Happy books. Which we've been talking about here. We're going to invite you up right now. I see Lindsay and Brian are up on stage, but if you want to talk to Anna about how you can start.
Brian.
What'd you say?
Hey, Anna, how are you?
I'm great. Nice to see you here.
Yes, thank you so much. And when I saw that you were going to be on Jimmy's channel here today, I mean, you talk about being a fanboy or whatever the terminology is. I was like, boy, my two favorite people, Jimmy and Anna, are on together. And I just was... I told my wife, Mary, I'm like, guess who's going to be on today? So just a great pleasure to speak with you both.
Thank you, Brian. I was in the middle of my little promo, Anna, and I was like, oh, okay. He said, hi. Hi, Brian. All right, I'm going to finish the promo, and then we'll come to you guys. All right, so where was I? Keto Clarity, that's where you are. Click on the house, subscribe, all that jazz. And then we're also over here on Instagram Live. Jimmy on Clubhouse over there. You can watch it live there. And then on the replay on IGTV, we also throw that up over on YouTube. As far as I know, I don't know anybody else on Clubhouse that's recording it the way I'm doing it, but I've always done things the weird way, Anna. Breaking new ground. Okay. Now we're ready. Yeah. Now we're ready for Lindsay. What you got for us, Lindsay?
I just wanted to also say, Anna, I love that you bring the simplicity and the fun back into the kitchen. And I think that's what's really a lot of times been lost, along with the knowledge. When I think about generationally, you guys mentioned this, when you think about what our kids or our grandkids, depending on where you are in life, or nieces and nephews, what they think food is versus what our grandparents know to be food, and how even when we grew up talking about Hamburger Helper and things, that it comes from a box, that it comes from a can, that food is packaged, and when in reality that's just dead food. It has no life-giving energy, whereas our grandparents understood and had a connection with their food source, with the livestock, with the life and death cycle, as you were describing, Jimmy, and also with how real food comes from the earth, and it has that life-giving energy, and that it can be a joy to be in the kitchen. And I think we've taken and stripped that whole connection with life and with joy out of the kitchen, and it's just become, well, we just drive through, we eat something to satisfy that hole in our stomach. In reality, it's such a place of connection to that life force and to joy with our family members and friends that mean the most to us, and that energy builds up the building blocks within our bodies. So I just want to say thank you so much, Anna. I love your book and love what you're doing. So
thank you, Lindsay.
So nice. Thank you, Lindsay. And I love what you said about the dead food. Screw dead food. We want live food.
Yes. Yeah. And literally live food with like the cultured foods. Like Mama used to get sauerkraut from the middle aisle, and I'm like, all right, it tasted like sauerkraut, but it didn't have all the gut health benefits. Why would you waste sauerkraut like that? Make some at home, let it culture, and get those good healthy bugs for your gut, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I remember growing up as a kid in the 80s, and it was Hamburger Helper, a can of green beans, a can of corn, and Grand's biscuits. That was what we had literally for dinner every night.
I have to tell this really funny story about my mom's secret weapon with cooking, and I'm being ironic when I say it. And I love my mom, but she didn't know how to cook anything, and she did the best she could, single mom. But her big splurge would be to buy a brick of cheddar cheese, and so she would grate that on everything. And she would make minute rice, grated with the cheese on it, or she would make, and this didn't have the cheese on it, she would get those ham steaks that were in the plastic.
Yes.
And then dump Dole pineapple slices, but not Dole, store brand.
Yes.
And then not powdered sugar, what's it called? Brown sugar on the ham. And then she would microwave it.
Yes. Yes.
Oh,
That's a Southern delicacy there. That's a real Southern delicacy.
yeah, yeah. So how far we've come, but yeah, and my mom had to go gluten free, but then when she passed away in 2014, but when I started doing this sugar and grain free way of eating, she really was thrown for a loop. She thought it was nuts.
Yes.
And that's also too another tricky thing when you're surrounded, if you have a big family or even a small family and you're making a lifestyle change. Sometimes it's really hard to do that because you're not always going to be supported, because a lot of times the choices that you're making are going to reflect in someone else's eyes as an affront to them.
Yes.
And that can happen. And listen, I was with my mom at her bedside when she died, and it was very much a thing that could have been prevented had she not been a sugar addict. And so watching that downfall happen has been a very personal driving experience / motivator / catalyst for me to want to, listen, we're all going to die. I'm not saying that, you know what I mean? I'm not being Pollyanna, like, I'm going to, be lifting 100 pounds when I'm 100 years old. I'm not going to be that person. But I want to be as healthy and happy as I can be and not be addicted to a food that's going to prevent me from healing from a simple surgery. And I want that for everybody else too.
I hope to lift my head up at 100. Forget 100 pounds. Just lift your head up and you're alive.
just to be upright would be nice.
Brian, what you got for us, man?
Well, thank you. And again, sorry for interrupting your...
No worries, bro. You're good.
But Anna, I just wanted to say a couple of things. First of all, your cookbooks, both Eat Happy 1, Eat Happy 2, have been instrumental on all of our dinners. I'd say probably 95% of our dinners come from either one of those two books. Not only that, our Christmas dinners, holiday dinners, whatever the holiday is, we have recipes from your books, and it's just amazing. Not only that, I want to share another story too. My mother and father-in-law, my mother-in-law does not like to cook at all. But since I've purchased your books and I've given them some leftovers, they're like, hey, this tastes actually really good. And so this past Christmas, I gave them your two books. I bought your two books and gave them as presents. And my mother-in-law, who never cooked, has been cooking your recipes, and she loves every single recipe that she's cooked. And she's never cooked before. So not only your recipes are delicious, they are very easy. I mean, it just takes a little time but the amount of small time you put into it, it just makes your food so much better. And I cannot thank you enough. My whole family thanks you tremendously.
This advertisement brought to you by Brian O'Halloran.
Wow, that was really nice, Brian. Thank you. No, and listen, you bring up some good points too, which people do get intimidated, because if you grew up and you're not taught, you don't have a person that you had in the kitchen as a role model, it can seem very scary and intimidating. And the thing that I love the most is when people write to me, or even better, when you review the book wherever you bought it. When I see reviews that people are like, I was scared to go in the kitchen and I got confidence from making your recipes, that makes me very happy, because that's the whole thing. I want everybody to feel empowered. And then what's even better is, because people write me all the time like, hey, I want to make this recipe, but I don't have spinach. Do you think that's okay? And I'm like, yeah, it's okay. I don't care. I don't give a shit what you make. Like, make it and put mushrooms in it. Make it, switch the chicken for salmon. Put the beef in the pork. I don't care. That's the whole point of cooking. But we get so scared, like, oh, I have to follow this recipe exactly.
Yes.
And what you start to find out is you actually don't. And you can work with what you have on hand. And by the way, insider secret, you guys, most recipes are written by people like me who are like, let's see. All right, what do I have in the fridge?
Yes.
And you come up with something and you're like, oh, that's great. I'm going to write that down, then make it 5 more times, make sure it works. And boom, I have a new recipe. It's literally just using up what's about to go bad in the fridge. There you go. Now I have a cookbook.
Yeah, and not only what I like about your cookbook is the fact that there's no macros to follow. There's just, you're eating real food. There's no this has X amount of carbohydrates or X amount of fat. Nothing like that. It's like, this is real food. This is how we are supposed to be eating. And it's such a simplistic way of thinking about it, but it makes so much sense.